I stood at the altar in front of 200 guests and exposed my fiancée's affair with my best man during our wedding vows. But let me back up and tell you how I got to that moment, because the story of how I discovered the betrayal is something I'll never forget. My name is Michael Harris. I'm 30 years old, and I work as an electrical engineer here in Houston, Texas. I've always been the kind of guy who believes in doing things the right way. Work hard, treat people with respect, and good things will come to you. That's what my dad taught me growing up in a small town outside of Dallas. I met Anna 3 years ago at a coffee shop downtown. She was sitting alone, reading a book about interior design, and something about the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she concentrated just caught my attention. I'm not usually the type to approach strangers, but that day I walked over and asked about her book. Anna had this laugh that could light up a room. She was 28, worked as a marketing coordinator for a local firm, and had dreams of starting her own design business someday. We talked for 2 hours that first day. I remember thinking I'd never met someone who seemed so genuinely interested in everything I had to say. Our relationship moved at a comfortable pace. We'd go to Astros games on weekends, try new restaurants in the Heights, and spend lazy Sunday mornings reading the paper together. Anna would curl up next to me on my old leather couch, and we'd plan little weekend trips to Austin or San Antonio. About 6 months into dating, I introduced her to my best friend, Jake Miller. Jake and I had been friends since college at UT. He was the complete opposite of me in many ways. Where I was cautious and methodical, Jake was spontaneous and charming. He could walk into any room and have people laughing within minutes. Jake worked in sales for a tech company, and he was good at it. Really good. He had this natural ability to make people feel like they were the most important person in the world when he talked to them. I'd always admired that about him, even if I sometimes felt a little inadequate when we hung out together. The three of us became inseparable. Jake would come over for dinner at least twice a week. We'd watch football games together, go out for drinks on Friday nights, and Jake even helped me pick out the engagement ring. When I finally decided to propose to Anna, I proposed on a Saturday evening last October. I'd planned this whole elaborate thing at Herman Park, right by the Japanese garden, where we'd had our first official date. I had Jake hiding in the bushes with a camera to capture the moment. Anna said yes before I even finished asking the question. She threw her arms around my neck and whispered, "I love you so much," in my ear. Planning the wedding was actually fun. Anna had all these ideas about flowers and decorations, and I just wanted her to be happy. We picked St. Matthew's Church in downtown Houston for the ceremony. It's this beautiful old church with stained glass windows and wooden pews that seat about 200 people. Jake was going to be my best man, of course. There was never any question about that. He'd stood by me through everything over the years. When my mom got sick during my junior year of college, Jake drove me home every weekend for 2 months. When I was having trouble finding a job after graduation, he helped me practice for interviews and even put in a good word at a few companies. Anna asked her sister Sarah to be the maid of honor. The four of us would often double date, with Jake bringing whatever girl he was seeing that month. Jake never seemed to stay with anyone for very long, but he was always honest about not wanting anything serious. "I'm not ready to settle down like you, Mike," he'd say with that charming grin of his. The wedding was set for June 15th. Everything was falling into place perfectly. We'd booked the reception at a nice hotel in River Oaks. Hired a photographer Anna found through her work connections, and even managed to get the band that played at my cousin's wedding the year before. About 2 months before the wedding, I started noticing little things that seemed off. Nothing major, just small details that didn't quite add up. Anna would get text messages and quickly flip her phone over when I was around. When I asked who it was, she'd say it was work, or her sister, or someone from the bridal party. Jake seemed different too. He was still his usual charming self, but sometimes I'd catch him looking at Anna in a way that made me uncomfortable. It was subtle, just a glance that lasted a beat too long, or the way he'd smile when she laughed at his jokes. One evening in April, about 2 months before the wedding, I came home early from work with a headache. Anna's car wasn't in the driveway, but I heard voices coming from the backyard. I walked through the house and looked out the kitchen window. Anna and Jake were sitting on my patio furniture, talking quietly. Anna's hand was on Jake's arm, and they were sitting closer together than friends usually do. When Anna saw me through the window, she quickly moved away from Jake and waved like everything was completely normal. "Hey, babe," she called out when I stepped outside. "Jake stopped by to talk about the bachelor party plans. I was just keeping him company until you got home." Jake stood up and clapped me on the shoulder. "Mike!" "How's it going, buddy? I was just telling Anna about this great idea I have for your bachelor party. There's this fishing charter down in Galveston that..." I listened to him talk, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The way they'd been sitting, the way Anna had moved away so quickly, the slightly guilty expression on Jake's face. But I pushed the feeling down. These were the two people I trusted most in the world. Over the next few weeks, I started paying more attention. Anna would mention having lunch with Jake to discuss wedding details. Jake would text me asking about Anna's favorite restaurants or what kind of flowers she liked, saying he wanted to help coordinate some surprise for the wedding. At first, I was touched that my best friend cared so much about making our wedding special. But then I realized how often they were communicating without including me. Anna would know things about Jake's work that I didn't know. Jake would reference conversations he'd had with Anna that I wasn't part of. The doubt started eating at me. I'd lie awake at night next to Anna, wondering if I was imagining things. During the day at work, I'd find myself distracted, running through interactions in my head, looking for clues I might have missed. 3 weeks before the wedding, Anna told me she was going out with her bridesmaids for a final dress fitting and dinner. She kissed me goodbye around 6 o'clock, wearing a blue dress I'd bought her for her birthday. Around 10 that night, I was watching baseball when I realized I'd left my laptop charger at the office. I needed it for a presentation the next morning, so I drove downtown to pick it up. On my way back, I stopped at a red light near the restaurant district. That's when I saw them. Jake and Anna were walking out of Romano's, an Italian place we'd been to several times together. But they weren't walking like friends. Jake's arm was around Anna's waist, and as I watched, she stopped and turned to face him. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. Not a friendly peck on the cheek. A real kiss. The kind of kiss you give someone you're in love with. I sat there at that red light, watching my fiancée kiss my best friend, and felt like the world was collapsing around me. The car behind me honked when the light turned green, and I drove home in a daze. Anna came home around 11:30. "How was dinner with the girls?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, it was great," she said, hanging up her purse. "Sarah's being impossible about her dress, but we got everything sorted out. I'm exhausted. I'm going to get ready for bed." I wanted to confront her right then. I wanted to ask her about Jake, about the restaurant, about the kiss I'd seen. But something held me back. Maybe it was cowardice, or maybe some part of me was still hoping I'd misunderstood what I'd seen. The next morning, Jake called me. "Hey, buddy, want to grab lunch? I've got some details to go over for the bachelor party." We met at our usual spot, a sports bar near my office. Jake was his normal self, joking around with the waitress, asking about my work projects. But I kept studying his face, looking for any sign of guilt or deception. "You seem distracted today," Jake said about halfway through lunch. "Everything okay? Not getting cold feet about the wedding, are you?" The irony of him asking that question wasn't lost on me. "No, everything's fine. Just work stress." "Well, don't worry about anything wedding related. Anna and I have been coordinating to make sure everything goes smoothly. She's got great ideas for the reception, and I think you're going to love what we've planned." The casual way he mentioned coordinating with Anna made my stomach turn. How long had this been going on? How many conversations? How many secret meetings? How many lies had I been told? That evening, I decided I needed proof before I could do anything. I hated myself for it, but I started paying attention to Anna's phone. I noticed she'd changed her passcode from our anniversary date to something else. When she was in the shower, I tried a few combinations. Her birthday, Jake's birthday, random numbers. Nothing worked. But I didn't need to get into her phone to see the changes in her behavior. She'd started working late more often. She'd get calls she'd take in the other room. When we were watching TV together, she seemed distracted, like her mind was somewhere else. The hardest part was pretending everything was normal. We had final meetings with the caterer, the photographer, the florist. We addressed invitations together at the kitchen table. Anna would show me fabric samples and ask my opinion about centerpieces, and I'd nod and smile while feeling like I was living in some kind of nightmare. 2 weeks before the wedding, we had the rehearsal dinner at Anna's parents' house. Jake gave a toast about friendship and loyalty that made me feel sick. Anna's mom pulled me aside and told me how lucky Anna was to have found someone like me. "She just glows when she talks about you, Michael," Anna's mom said. "I've never seen her so happy." I excused myself and went to the bathroom, where I stared at myself in the mirror and wondered what kind of person I was becoming. Was I really going to let this charade continue? Was I going to marry someone who was lying to me? But then I thought about all the people who would be at the wedding. Anna's elderly grandmother, who was flying in from California. My dad, who had already bought a new suit and was so proud that his son was settling down with such a wonderful woman. The church we'd already paid for, the reception hall, the flowers, the band. And I thought about the possibility, however small, that I was wrong. What if I was reading too much into innocent interactions? What if I was about to destroy the best thing in my life because of paranoia and jealousy? The week of the wedding was a blur of final preparations. My groomsmen arrived in town. Anna's bridesmaids came in for dress alterations and nail appointments. Everyone was excited and happy, and I felt like I was walking around with a terrible secret. The bachelor party was Thursday night. Jake had organized a night out that started with dinner and ended at a sports bar watching the Astros game. It should have been fun, but I spent the entire evening watching Jake, looking for any sign of guilt or nervousness. Around midnight, when most of the other guys had gone home, Jake and I were sitting at the bar, having one last beer. "Mike, I need to tell you something," Jake said suddenly. My heart started pounding. This was it. He was going to confess. He was going to tell me about Anna. "I know I haven't always been the most reliable friend," he continued. "I know I can be selfish sometimes. But I want you to know that you mean the world to me, man. Having you as a friend has made me a better person." He raised his beer bottle. "To friendship, and to you, finding the perfect woman to spend your life with." I clinked my bottle against his, hating him and hating myself in equal measure. Friday was the rehearsal at the church. We went through the ceremony step by step. Anna looked beautiful in her simple blue dress. When we got to the part where we'd exchange vows, the minister had us practice with placeholder words. "You'll want to speak from the heart tomorrow," he told us. "But remember to keep it to about 2 minutes each. People get restless if the vows go on too long." After the rehearsal, we had dinner at the hotel where the reception would be held. Anna sat next to me, her hand on my leg under the table, laughing at her cousin's stories about past family weddings. She seemed genuinely happy and excited about our big day. That night, I barely slept. I kept going back and forth in my mind. Maybe I should call off the wedding. Maybe I should confront Anna privately. Maybe I should just forget what I'd seen and try to move forward. But by morning, I'd made a decision. If Anna was betraying me, if Jake was betraying me, they deserved to have their betrayal exposed publicly, just like they'd been conducting their affair in public while lying to my face. Saturday morning, I got ready at my apartment while Anna got ready at her parents' house. My dad helped me with my tie and told me how proud he was of the man I'd become. Jake and the other groomsmen came over around noon, joking around and taking pictures. "You ready for this, buddy?" Jake asked, straightening my collar. "Today's the day you become a married man." "Yeah," I said, looking him directly in the eye. "Today's definitely going to be a day to remember." We arrived at the church at 1:30. The photographer was already there, taking pictures of the flowers and the stained glass windows. Guests were starting to arrive and find their seats. I stood in the small room behind the altar with my groomsmen, listening to the music and the sound of people talking and laughing in the sanctuary. Jake kept checking his watch and pacing around the room. "Everything okay?" I asked him. "Yeah, just want to make sure everything goes perfectly for you today." At 2 o'clock, the music changed to signal the start of the ceremony. We walked out and took our places at the front of the church. The sanctuary was packed with friends and family. Anna's grandmother was in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. The bridesmaids came down the aisle one by one, wearing the lavender dresses Anna had picked out. Sarah, the maid of honor, gave me a big smile as she took her place across from Jake. Then the music changed again, and everyone stood up. Anna appeared at the back of the church with her father. She looked absolutely stunning in her white dress, carrying a bouquet of white roses and baby's breath. Her veil trailed behind her, and she had the biggest smile on her face. As she walked down the aisle, I could see her searching the crowd, nodding and smiling at relatives and friends. When her eyes met mine, she practically glowed with happiness. Her father shook my hand and kissed Anna on the cheek before taking his seat in the front row. Anna took my hands, and I could see tears of joy in her eyes. "You look beautiful," I whispered. "I love you so much," she whispered back. The minister began the ceremony with a reading from Corinthians about love. Anna squeezed my hands and smiled at me like I was the only person in the world. We went through the traditional parts of the ceremony. The unity candle, where Anna and I each lit our individual candles and then lit the larger candle together. A reading by Anna's sister about the meaning of marriage. A song performed by Anna's college roommate. Then the minister got to the part I'd been waiting for. Now, Anna and Michael would like to share the vows they've written for each other. Michael, would you like to go first? I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the piece of paper where I'd written my vows. But these weren't the vows I'd originally planned to say. I looked out at all the faces in the congregation. Anna's parents, my dad, our friends and relatives who had traveled from all over the country to celebrate with us. Jake standing right next to me, probably wondering what I was going to say. Then I looked at Anna. She was looking back at me with complete trust and love, waiting to hear how I was going to pledge my life to her. "Anna," I began, my voice carrying clearly through the microphone clipped to my jacket. 3 years ago, I fell in love with a woman I thought was honest, loyal, and faithful. I believed I had found my soulmate, someone I could trust completely for the rest of my life. Anna smiled, not yet sensing where this was going. But over the past few months, I've discovered that the woman I fell in love with doesn't actually exist. The woman standing in front of me has been lying to me, deceiving me, and betraying me with someone I considered my best friend. The smile faded from Anna's face. A murmur went through the congregation. I could see people in the pews looking confused, leaning forward in their seats. 2 weeks ago, I saw you, Anna, kissing my best man outside Romano's restaurant while you were supposed to be at dinner with your bridesmaids. I've watched you lie to my face over and over again. I've watched Jake, my supposed best friend, help you deceive me while pretending to care about my happiness. Anna's face had gone completely white. "Michael, please," she whispered. "Not like this." But I wasn't finished. "So Anna, here are my real vows to you. I vow never to trust you again. I vow never to speak to you again after today. And I vow that everyone who matters to us will know exactly who you really are." The church had gone completely silent, except for the sound of Anna crying. I could see her parents in the front row, looking shocked and confused. Jake was staring at me like he couldn't believe what was happening. I turned to face Jake. "And Jake, since you're standing up here with me, I thought you should know that I've seen how you look at her. I know about your secret meetings and your private conversations. I know you've been planning to steal my fiancée, probably thinking you'd wait until after the wedding to make your move official." Jake opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. I turned back to Anna. "I could have called off this wedding privately. I could have confronted you at home, behind closed doors. But you chose to conduct your affair in public, lying to everyone who cares about us. So I thought it was only fair that everyone should know the truth in public too." Anna was sobbing now, her bouquet shaking in her hands. "Michael, please, let me explain. It's not what you think. "What I think," I said, "is that you've made a fool of me for months. What I think is that you were planning to marry me while being in love with someone else. What I think is that both of you are exactly the kind of people who would betray someone who trusted you completely." I could hear people whispering throughout the church. Someone's phone was ringing. Anna's grandmother was being helped to her feet by Anna's cousin. I took off the wedding ring I'd been planning to put on Anna's finger and set it on the altar rail. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry you came all this way to see a wedding that isn't going to happen. But I hope you'll understand that I refuse to marry someone who's been lying to me." I walked down from the altar and headed toward the back of the church. Behind me, I could hear Anna calling my name and Jake trying to say something to the crowd about misunderstandings, but I didn't turn around. I walked straight out of that church and drove away, leaving behind the woman I'd thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, and the best friend I'd trusted with everything. The aftermath was every bit as messy as you'd expect. Anna's parents called me repeatedly for days, asking me to reconsider, saying there had to be some explanation. My dad was furious that I'd humiliated Anna in front of everyone, even though he agreed she'd been wrong to cheat. Anna texted me constantly for weeks, begging me to let her explain. She claimed that yes, she had feelings for Jake, but nothing physical had happened between them. She said the kiss I'd seen was Jake making a move on her, not something she'd initiated. Jake called me once, about a week after the wedding that didn't happen. He said he was sorry, that he'd developed feelings for Anna but hadn't acted on them until recently, and that he'd been planning to talk to me about it after the wedding. "I never meant for it to happen, Mike," he said, "but I can't help how I feel about her." "You could have helped lying to me about it," I told him. "You could have helped making me look like an idiot in front of everyone I care about." That was the last conversation I had with either of them. I heard through mutual friends that Anna and Jake started dating officially about 2 months after the wedding disaster. They moved in together 6 months later. Apparently, they're still together now, almost a year later. Some people have told me I went too far, that I should have handled it privately instead of humiliating them in front of everyone. Others have said they admired me for having the courage to stand up for myself publicly. You know, if you're enjoying this story and want to hear more real-life drama like this, consider subscribing. It really helps me share these experiences with people who might be going through similar situations. Stories like this one show us that sometimes the people we trust most can surprise us in the worst possible ways. Looking back now, I still believe I made the right choice. Yes, it was dramatic. Yes, it hurt people who didn't deserve to be hurt, like Anna's grandmother and my dad. But Anna and Jake made their choices over a period of months. They chose to lie to me, to deceive me, to plan a future behind my back while letting me believe I was about to marry the love of my life. They humiliated me first, just in private. I simply returned the favor in public. The hardest part hasn't been losing Anna, honestly. It's been losing Jake. I'd known him for almost 10 years. He'd been there for every major moment in my adult life. Losing a relationship is painful, but losing a friendship that deep feels like losing a piece of yourself. I've had to rebuild my social circle completely. Jake and I had the same group of friends, and most of them didn't know how to handle the situation. Some stayed neutral, some took sides, and some just drifted away from all the drama. But in some ways, this whole experience has made me stronger. I learned that I'm capable of standing up for myself, even when it's difficult. I learned that I'd rather be alone than be with someone who doesn't respect me enough to be honest with me. I also learned to trust my instincts. I knew something was wrong for months before I actually saw them together. I could feel it in the way they acted around each other, in the little lies Anna told, in the guilt I could see in Jake's face when he looked at me. These days, I'm doing well. I threw myself into work for a while, got a promotion, and bought a new house in a different part of Houston. I've started dating again, slowly and carefully. I'm more cautious now about trusting people, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. The woman I'm seeing now, Rebecca, knows the whole story. I told her on our fourth date, figuring she deserved to know why I sometimes seem guarded or why I ask more questions than most people might. "I'm glad you told me," she said, "and I'm glad you had the strength to walk away from a situation that wasn't right for you. I still think about Anna sometimes, and I still miss the friendship I had with Jake, but I don't regret my decision to expose their betrayal publicly. They made their choice to deceive me. I made my choice to reveal the truth. Some people might say I should have forgiven them, that everyone makes mistakes, that love is complicated, and maybe they're right. Maybe a better person would have handled it differently. But I'm not interested in being the kind of person who accepts betrayal quietly. I'm not interested in being understanding about people who lie to my face while pretending to care about me. I wanted a marriage based on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. Anna couldn't give me that, and Jake couldn't give me the loyalty I thought our friendship deserved. So I walked away from both of them, and I've never looked back. The truth is, I'm grateful it happened before the wedding rather than after. Can you imagine if I'd found out about their affair a year into the marriage? 2 years? 5 years? The betrayal would have been even worse, and the consequences even more complicated. At least this way, I found out who they really were before I legally tied my life to Anna's. Before we bought a house together, had kids together, built a life that would have been much harder to walk away from. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened to you. I'm not saying I'm glad Anna cheated on me, or that I'm glad Jake betrayed our friendship. But I am glad I found out the truth when I did. And I'm glad I had the courage to act on that truth, even when it meant embarrassing myself and hurting people I cared about. Because at the end of the day, the only person you can really count on to protect your own dignity and self-respect is yourself. Anna and Jake taught me that lesson the hard way, standing at an altar in front of 200 people on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. It wasn't the wedding day I'd planned, but it was the day I learned who I really am and what I'm willing to accept from the people in my life. And that might be the most valuable lesson anyone can learn. So, now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my situation? Do you think I made the right choice by exposing their betrayal publicly? Or should I have handled it privately? Have you ever been betrayed by someone close to you? And how did you deal with it? And here's the big question. Do you think people deserve second chances when they betray your trust? Or are some betrayals unforgivable? Leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I read every single one, and I'm genuinely curious about your perspective on this whole situation.